for the Natural Capital Hub. So that is a research and knowledge exchange hub within the university. I did do my undergrad here, as we said. So I started in 2014 and studied wildlife conservation. I then came back to do my master's, which was a research master's in conservation ecology, looking at species distributions and how they are affected by climate change. And then last year I got approached for this role. So this is a Green Recovery Challenge funded role. So it is part of like the government's agenda to get a green boost of green jobs and green skills. And yeah, this project actually is a temporary one, runs to the end of this year, but the role is kind of going to be continued to be supported by the university. So first of all, kind of just to touch on what are green skills, because in basic terms, they kind of encompass all of the knowledge, abilities and skills that we're going to need to support and develop a just and sustainable society. So most jobs have the potential to become green as we change to create a greener society and combat climate change, move towards that net zero target. So this will cross all sectors: transport, construction, energy, business, which I'm sure David will speak to you more about with the 2030 Hub, and the natural environment, which I can speak to you more about as being part of the Natural Capital Hub. So first of all, just to touch on what natural capital is. So natural capital simply means the world's stock of natural resources. We often think of kind of financial capital and the financial assets that we have. But there's actually many types of capital. So the manufactured capital, the technology, and things like that we produce, the social and human capital, so the health and the skills and relationships we have in society. And then underpinning all of this is the natural capital, which are these kind of soil, air, water, the species and the habitats that we have, and they provide us with free goods and services that we know as ecosystem services. So I always think of this as if we look at a tree, we can look at its value as chopping it down and selling it for timber and having that financial value, or we can look at all the services it provides us. So it kind of improves our soil quality, it can reduce flood risk, it can mitigate climate change impacts by taking in carbon. And as well, it has kind of these health benefits to us in terms of air pollution, but also just their aesthetic value and kind of the value we have as in access to nature and kind of just being out and enjoying our natural environment. So a natural capital approach to decision making basically just recognises all of these multiple benefits that natural capital has to society, and it tries to drive a flow of financing to recovering and supporting our natural capital. So what the hub does, we have two main parts of the team. So we have our mapping side of the hub, and what they do is take kind of all these freely available maps, so that look at green spaces, priority habitats, forest inventory, and they create layers which kind of create these baseline maps for where of all our natural capital assets are located. So we're actually looking at mapping the whole of England at the minute, so on quite a large scale. But then what happens is clients come to us and they can ask us where we can have the most benefit to kind of nature and society by taking steps and putting in interventions to improve, say, access to nature or water purification and things like that. We can also look at it in terms of the demand it has for these services. So if we look at kind of population data and deprivation indices and where the most need is to uplift and improve on our natural capital. The next part of the hub is the training side, which I mainly focus on. So our goal is to embed a natural capital approach into policy and decision making. When I started last year, we started doing lots of interviews within the environmental sector on what the need was for natural capital understanding and training. And we found two things, mainly that there needs to be a lot of upskilling and reskilling within the sector, because a lot of new policy and legislation is coming into place, and it requires a lot of new skills that may not have been there originally, but also that there's not this pipeline of skills coming through, particularly to these new roles that are being created through the green jobs boost. So currently I'm working at all levels within schools, sitting on panels and within kind of within the sector. So we've recently done some training for local authority planners, like I say, just to cover a lot of the new policy that's coming in this year, and trying to upskill those people that are already in within the green sector. So I'm sure the 2030 Hub will focus on kind of the global targets that we need to meet with these green skills. But we also have kind of agenda within the UK to boost our green skills, and that's to deliver on these 10 goals. So these were originally from the 25-year environment plan published in 2018. These are to improve our environmental quality, to improve the use of resources, mitigate climate change, and then with the apex goal of thriving plants and wildlife. So in other words, our thriving natural capital. An update to the plan was published earlier this year, and a quote from that was, "From foresters and farmers to green finance and research and development, this plan will lead to investment and create hundreds of thousands of green jobs across the UK." So there was a big focus in this plan on upskilling and creating these new green jobs, kind of post-COVID recovery as well, to recover the economy, and obviously to have these benefits for society. So yeah, that's what we're trying to achieve with kind of green skills. So what are the green skills for the conservation sector? So first of all, for most roles now, for most or businesses and things like that, you're going to have some understanding of carbon literacy, of climate change impacts. Every business are going to look at having kind of ESG managers and things like that. If you have kind of environmental degrees, you're in a good position, I'd say, but you still have to keep on top of kind of the new legislation and the kind of up-to-date issues that are in the news. Practical conservation skills are a big one. So obviously to recover our natural spaces, we're going to have to understand them better, know how the ecology works, the different species within them. So that's things like species ID, habitat management, surveying skills. So these are touched on kind of the environmental degrees, but another way to get these skills is through kind of volunteering. First off, if you can't get those usually you need kind of the experience to get the roles in the first place. Another big one that I touched on earlier on, we do a lot of spatial analysis. We are in kind of a data revolution, so we have so much data, more than we've ever had at our fingertips at the minute, and we need to understand how to kind of consolidate that and use that to our advantage. So any data analysis skills that you have, GIS, are they are kind of really useful, particularly in roles like the one I'm in. Research, obviously, we're within academia, so research is a big one, but also we're going to need a lot of innovation in all sectors. And we have research in kind of the NGOs, the Nature Conservancy organisations. So that's a big one. Critical thinking and problem solving, because we're looking at facing problems that we've never dealt with before. So we need those kind of new ideas, new methods, and problem solving skills. Communication is a big one for all jobs, but obviously if you're putting new methods into practice, you're going to have to communicate them either verbally or written communication skills. So yeah, this is just to say there's so many transferable skills within the green sector. It's not kind of a completely new area. And like I say, lots of current roles are going to be adapted, and those skills can be transferred into the green roles. So a little bit on my career journey. I wouldn't really call it a path. It's kind of been more of a collection of experiences. I've just thrown this in there because I think it can be quite overwhelming to think, how am I going to go from no experience or very little experience to maybe a green career? But this just goes to show that I've kind of worked in lots of different roles that just kind of work on those transferable skills. So I've worked within retail, within like hospitality and things like that, just developing my confidence first off. And then I've started to take kind of the roles that are on offer within the university. So looking at kind of the uni temps roles, looking at research assistant roles. So one of the things we have been working on in the Natural Capital Hub is actually improving the kind of connections between the sector and our employability team, and improving those internships that are available to those students. So kind of keep your eye out for them and keep applying for them if you get the opportunity. I've done lots of volunteering, like I say, to kind of develop those practical skills, looking at species surveying. And one big part of my journey was I volunteered for an organisation called UK Youth for Nature, and they are kind of a group of 18 to 30-year-olds that are campaigning for nature change across the UK. That kind of helped me to network and start building these relationships that I'm now using in my current role. And just to finish off, it is Neurodiversity Celebration Week. So I just wanted to touch on the fact that we are going to need a diverse range of skills to kind of resolve these challenges we have ahead of us with climate change and nature loss. So that comes in the form of gender diversity, cultural diversity, and also neurodiversity. We're going to need different ways of thinking than we have to get us into the state that we are in currently. So yeah, lots of these things that we often think of as kind of disorders or weaknesses can be thought of as a benefit, in my opinion. So yeah, I don't know whether we're doing any questions now or after the next talk, but feel free to ask any now.